Well, hello, Bridgeway. And hello to all of you at Bridgeway's Owings Mills Reisterstown campus. We are so glad you're able to join us. And if you are also just online through our Facebook feed, we welcome you too. We are so glad that you have decided to invest time this morning. My name is Dan Taylor. I'm an associate pastor here at Bridgeway, and it is definitely my privilege to be able to speak to you today. I want to start out with what I would consider one of the most basic questions. What is life? What is life? Now, on the surface, it seems kind of simple, rudimentary, doesn't it? Life is when any being is breathing and engaging in whatever is considered normal activity for that species, yes? Fish swim, that's their life. Birds fly, that's life. Preschoolers are walking petri dishes, that's life. Rabbits hop and multiply like rabbits, that's life. In the vast majority of the world, it is pretty easy most of the time to know when something has life and when it does not. Now, this is true for every species except us. We are a unique species that can live our lives without ever having a life at all. Many of you in this room and up at Owings Mills or watching online have experienced not having a life while you were breathing, moving, and doing all the things that our species does. Now, for some, they think that life will start when one day they possess that thing that they don't have yet. For example, remember when you got your driver's license? I don't know about you, but I thought a driver's license was going to change my life. And it did. Because I had my first accident 5 days after I got it. I discovered having a driver's license is not all that it's cracked up to be. Yeah. Nobody got it at 8. At least one person got it at 10. I'm shooting for 2 at 12. That might seem like a really cheesy illustration, but many people and many of us are still waiting for that thing that will finally make us feel like we have a real life. Maybe purchasing a spanking brand new luxury vehicle, or the latest gadget or gizmo that you will wait in line all night to get. Or how about the final episode of Games of Thrones? Some of you waited for years for that thing. If Congress wants to do something productive, they should investigate who wrote that. Maybe your boss's job, if you could have it, you would do it right, and you would begin to experience real life, because you'd have an office. You'd have a reserved parking place. You'd have a receptionist handling your communication for you. You would have a salary that would finally make you financially be able to relax. You would have the ability to hire and fire and have real power and make decisions, and maybe you think that's what life is. Maybe it's finishing your degree and being able to start real life. Maybe it's having an infant in your womb, a wedding ring on your finger, a wedding ring on her finger. Maybe it's having enough money in the bank so you can financially breathe in whatever that amount is for you. And for some, real life is their next drink, their next hit, their next snort of something. Maybe it's turning 16. Remember that? Maybe it's turning 21. You remember that? For some, it's retirement. Some people have lived their whole life for the day they get to retire, and then they'll be able to experience real life for the first time, because it'll be their life. Or maybe it's the Jonas Brothers reunion tour. I can ask this in a very much simpler way. What is your life waiting for? What is your life waiting for? And just because you're a Christian, don't give me those Sunday school pat answers either. We church people can be living without a life with the best of them. And then we can wear a fake smile that a movie star would be proud to have. See, many times, church is the veneer that we paint over our lives so no one can see that we don't have a life. Church is a place where some of us hide who we actually are. Now, some think that really living is having their external appearance all together. God has blessed you with a body, or a face, or a physique, and you get attention. It is where you get your self-worth from. To you, being attractive is life. But you better be careful. See, I am an old man, and I have been around the block a few times. So if this is you, you better look out because she is coming. Young man, I just want you to know that he is coming. You might be Cindy Crawford today, but look out, Kate Upton is coming. And just for the record, I had to look those two names up while I was doing research for the message. I have no idea who they are. If you believe that, I have oceanfront property in Kansas I'd like to sell you. You might be LeBron James today, but look out, Zion Williamson just got drafted. So you need to understand a new model is always coming around the corner, and you will be replaced. You can try and fight against time with all sorts of lotions, potions, powders, and pricey clothes. But getting life that way will always slowly slip through your fingers and leave you behind in the past. Now, I could keep going the whole message like this. There are so many ways to live and yet miss out on having a real life. And then sometimes when you're all alone, maybe on the way home, driving home, exhausted from work, or a night that you really can't sleep, maybe after attending one more funeral or one more wedding that's not yours, or after being passed over one more time at work, sometimes in the middle of those moments, Jesus taps us on the shoulder and says, I am the door. Whoever enters through me will be saved. And then he makes this really interesting statement. He will come in and go out and find pasture. We'll talk about what that means next week. But then he ends this statement in verse 10 by saying, I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. See, Jesus stands with all the other options that we get to choose from, offering us real life. And what I want you to do today is to consider his offer and his definition of real life. Now, the statement of Jesus that I just read comes out of John chapter 10, verse 10. And it is the first high point statement of John chapter 10. So to begin, we're going to rewind and go back to the beginning of this chapter and see why Jesus makes this statement in the first place. So if you have your Bibles, go ahead and turn to John chapter 10. If you don't have your Bibles, don't worry, we will be putting the verses up on the screen, but if you have your Bibles, please turn. Go to John chapter 10. And I want to start with verse 1. It's John chapter 10. Let's just start with the first verse, right? I tell you the truth, the man who does not enter the sheep pen by the gate, but climbs in by some other way, is a thief and a robber. Wait a minute. Whoa, hang on just a minute. Who in the world starts a Bible chapter like that? What in the world is climbing over walls, sheep pens, thieves, and robbers? Now, if you think that way, I totally understand that this chapter starts out a little abrupt, wouldn't you say? It's like being dumped into the middle of a conversation, and you have been. See, the key to figuring this thing out is knowing a little history about the Bible. Good thing for you, I get paid to do this. See, the problem here with John 10:1 is caused by how we often read the Bible, by chapters. I got news for you. When the Apostle John wrote the Gospel of John, there were no chapters. There were no verses. It was just one long document. That's how it's supposed to be read. Now, we didn't get chapters in our Bibles until the mid-1250s, somewhere along that time. We didn't get verses until the 1500s. So for hundreds of years, people read these passages without verses and without chapters. Now, obviously, having chapters and verses is a great system for millions of people to know where in the world someone is teaching, like John 10, or even just to share verses with other people. But the problem with them is they can confuse us when we read them and not know that that's what it's doing to us, like it is here. See, in John chapter 10 is smack in the middle of a huge section of John's gospel that starts in chapter 7 and doesn't end until the last verse of chapter 11. This section of John is all about the ramping up of the tension between Jesus and the religious leaders of the day. And if you read through 7 all the way to end of 11, you can feel the tension build. So to understand where in the world Jesus is coming from with this statement in John 10, we actually need to go back to chapter 9 in the beginning there. Now, thankfully, chapter 9 starts off a lot better than chapter 10 does. And it starts with a story about a man who was born blind, and Jesus heals him. The only problem is, Jesus healed him on the Sabbath, which is a no-no to the religious leaders, because that was working on a day you're supposed to be resting. I kid you not, they are ticked because Jesus had the nerve to cure someone who had been blind his whole entire life on a Saturday. They show no astonishment, no awe in what has just taken place. No, isn't this great that this grown man who has never seen anyone or anything in his entire life can see now? Instead, they are stuck on a theological debate instead of the living miracle standing right in front of them. Thank God we would never do that. How about 2 divorced Christians getting married? Ooh, that could be scandalous. Or an unwed parent wanting to dedicate their child in church. How could they? Or someone coming to church after partying just a little too hard on Saturday. Have they no respect? See, we have to be very careful when principles become more important to us than people. Maybe that baby dedication for that parent is going to be a turning point for them. Yes, maybe their eyes are a little bloodshot, but that message was custom designed by God for them. Now, don't get me wrong. I think having principles is very important. I'm all in favor of all of you obeying, thou shalt not murder. I'm pretty sure I can get behind that one, encourage all of you to keep it. I'm very thrilled my wife loves, thou shalt not commit adultery. It makes me very happy to know. But you might have some really strong views about other things like divorce and remarriage. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that either, as long as you don't use it as a measuring stick to decide who is in and who is out when it comes to your relational world. Because that's exactly what these religious Pharisees and leaders are doing. Now, you need to understand, these people were not considered the bad guys like we consider them now today. They were respected and considered highly zealous for God and wanted to obey God as fully as they could. They were Bible-believing, God-obeying models of their day, and they wanted to get their spirituality right. Who's that sound like? Listen to what author Larry Osborne writes. He said, "The moment my personal application of the scriptures becomes the lens through which I judge others, something has gone terribly wrong. We love to poke fun and judge the religious leaders that Jesus battled, and their hypocrisy is easy for us to spot. Our own hypocrisy can be a little tough. We can spot what is often called legalism in others or other churches really fast, but nobody would ever claim and label themselves a legalist. I would encourage all of you who claim to be a Christ follower to sometime read Larry Osborne's book, Accidental Pharisees. Pastor Mitch took several members of our staff through this book several years ago, and trust me, none of us got through this book unscathed. We all discovered that we had little Pharisees and little legalists in our hearts that we did not know. The short version of the story in chapter 9 is they throw this guy out of the synagogue. Basically, they just want to remove the evidence so they don't have to deal with this miracle of Jesus at all. He was no longer allowed to be part of their spiritual community there ever again. But after they toss him out, Jesus finds him. Now you need to understand and remember, he had never seen Jesus. He was born blind. And now can he not only see Jesus in his physical form, but he also sees Jesus' divine nature and his divine form, and he worships him. But at the end of chapter 9, another debate breaks out between Jesus and the Pharisees. Remember, this is ramping up everything that happens. By the way, do you think Jesus healed someone on the Sabbath by accident? No. I mean, this guy had been born blind. You could have gotten there a day early. You could have stayed at the Hilton, spent the night, and done it on Sunday. Jesus never does anything by accident. So in chapter 9, after the synagogue rulers toss this guy out, Jesus changes his vocabulary. In chapter 9, it's all about sight and blindness. As soon as they toss them out, he changes the image to shepherds and sheep. Because the shepherds, these spiritual leaders, now took one of their sheep and threw them out. And we'll get more into this next week when we talk about Jesus being the good shepherd. But that's why we have this weird statement that kicks off John chapter 10 in verse 1 because of all that has happened to this blind man in chapter 9. But beating up on the religious rulers is a really easy target. And I could spend the rest of the time doing that. But to be honest, as I went through this passage and studied what was going on there, there was something that just stuck with me that I could not get away from. And so I want to ask a real tougher question. In John chapter 10, verse 10, Jesus declares at the end of this verse this: I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. Really? Is that true? Is that your experience? There are many things that happen in our lives which should make us question that statement and whether it's true. There are tragic things that happen to Christians all the time. Is that the life Jesus is inviting us to? Now, I don't have time to go into a long discussion on this, but when we study what having a full life is like from God's point of view, it's very different than what we consider a full life from our point of view. I mean, just think about it for a minute. There is not a single Bible character that does not experience either grief or sickness or loneliness or anxiety, wayward kids. All sorts of stuff happens to them, even Jesus. Have you ever thought to think that Jesus was the loneliest person that ever lived? Because no one on this earth understood who he was. And everybody that came to him had a different agenda. We know that he had these 3 inner disciples that he did more with than the others, but even they fell asleep when he needed them. Jesus didn't even go unscathed on this planet from pain and difficulty in his life. See, the error in our thinking is that having a full life, that Jesus to have life to the full, or to have a real life, is how we would define what having a real life is like. We would define a real life as having no relational strife, plenty of money in the bank, a job that totally fulfills us, and friends that are never jerks to us. And all I can say to you, if that's your idea of having a full life, good luck. When Jesus offers us life to the full, he's thinking of something way different than that. Do you remember Jesus' prayer that he taught to his disciples? We call it the Lord's Prayer. If you really want to understand what the life that Jesus is offering, you should spend a week or two just diving into what that teaches, because that's a description of life. But the kicker phrase for me is what we read in Matthew chapter 6, verse 10. You don't even need to turn there. They'll probably put it up on the screen. You already know it. Your kingdom come on earth as it is. See, real life is when divine life interacts with human life. When what is going on up there comes down here, that's when real life begins to take place. It is when our life and our existence becomes part of something larger than just ourselves. That we go beyond ourselves to something else. That is why Rick Warren, who wrote one of the most popular books ever printed on the planet, wrote The Purpose-Driven Life. So get a load of the title, The Purpose-Driven Life, right? How to have a life. Anyone know in the room what the title of the very first chapter is? It's not about you. That's the title of the first chapter. And if you don't get the first chapter, the rest of the book is worthless to you. It is not about you. That's why Jesus says, if you want to save your life, what do you have to do? Lose it. See, it's when our life becomes an outpost of what God is doing, when we interact with people because they are part of God's creation and people whom he loves. Do you see people that way? Or are they just a nuisance? And by the way, it doesn't matter their age. They can be 4 or 40. It doesn't matter. When Jesus says he wants us to have a full life, it's full of the good things that he wants to bring to us. The problem is we're looking for a different good thing. And many times we miss out. Jesus' real life is not an offer to a life of ease and luxury. If that was the case, Jesus' original 11 apostles must have missed the memo. Because if you study history, you will find out all of them were either executed or murdered, except for the apostle John. So let me ask you, did Jesus lie to his disciples when he said he was going to give them life to the full? See, this is where our American culture can mess with us. Because we think life is about spending. In fact, we even use the term, how I spend my time. Life is not about spending. Life is about investing. I want to take whatever years I got left and invest them into things that matter. Into things that make a difference. So it's not about us. It's about what God wants to do with us. Real life is about investing your life, not spending it. Where are you investing your life in something that's bigger than you? Life needs to be an investment into people and movements and organizations that are saying no to the evil in this world and saying yes to the things that are good and benefiting the people that come in contact with it. Real life is learning how to live beyond yourself, beyond your little queendom, beyond your little kingdom, into a better kingdom, into something that's bigger than just you. Now, a little public service announcement. If you're in the room and you're an introvert, I'm just going to warn you that something is going to happen here in a few minutes that might make you a little uncomfortable, so I just wanted to give you a heads up. How many of you grew up in church? Most of your life. Okay, good number of you. I don't know about you, but the church I grew up in, cursing was considered bad. I mean, there's words that would get me into serious trouble that would usually result in soap where I didn't need it. So we were instructed all the time about cursing and that it's bad and don't do it. But how many of us have ever been instructed in how to bless someone? See, when you bless someone, that is real life. You are going beyond yourself into something that's bigger. Because a blessing means you're invoking God into the life of another person. And so what we're going to do today is I'm going to teach you how to bless. And this is just one skill that you can use to begin to engage in something that's bigger than yourself. And figure out what God is doing and be a part of what he's up to, instead of always trying to get him to be in on what you want to have happen. So if you want to read more about this, you can pick up John Ortberg's book called Soul Keeping. He has a whole chapter on blessing. But let me just give you the cliff notes here. Because when I say blessing someone, that can be very abstract, right? So when you bless someone, what you're doing is projecting good into the life of another person. You're projecting good into the life of another person. This is how Ortberg describes it. Blessing is a real and definitive act of your will. It is something that you think, then it is something that you feel, then it is something you will, and then we choose to do it. And I love this part. Blessing is done from the soul, with the soul, to a soul. So how do we do this? Well, we have in the Old Testament one of the most famous texts of any world religion that you might be aware of, and it's in Numbers chapter 6. So they're going to put this up on the screen for you, and we're going to look at it for a minute. And this is a very traditional Old Testament blessing where it says, "The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace." Now, if you don't notice, there's 6 different descriptions of how to bless someone in here. Go to the next one. So we put those in red. There's those 6 parts. Now, I don't have time to go through and describe what all 6 of them mean, because we probably need to know what each of them means, because they're language we're not used to. But you don't have to worry, because if you go to the information table at the end of the service, they have a printout with all of the scripture, all the books that we've talked about, and a description of what each one of those blessings means. So you can dive into it a lot deeper after we're done. But we're just going to focus on one. Go to the next slide for me. We're just going to do this. I'm going to teach you how to use this in the life of another person. So when you say the Lord bless you, what you're saying is, may the Lord bring something good into your life. Now, I want you to notice here, when it says, may the Lord bring something good into your life, you're not telling God what the answer to the prayer needs to be. If you want to take your spiritual life to a new place, stop telling God how to answer your prayers. Many times we think we know what the good is for somebody else better than God does. Don't do that. All you have to do is pray that God does something good and let him answer it how he wants. He really doesn't need our help. But he wants to hear our voice. Does that make sense? So when you say to someone that you want to bless them, you're saying, I want God to bring something good into your life. Now, you need to understand and keep in mind, you are not the blesser, God is. You are pronouncing it on the behalf of another person who's standing in front of you, and you are agreeing on who God is and how he works. Now, we're going to go into an exercise all of us are going to do together. But I want to be really clear. You don't have to do this or participate if you don't want to. There is no judgment here if you don't. Right? Right? There is no judgment if you do not want to participate. We totally understand. But, before you say no to this, I just want you to understand this might be an opportunity to take a spiritual step forward that you might need to take. And if it's taking you out of your comfort zone, maybe that's where God wants you to go. I'm just saying. Parents, don't make your kids do this if they don't want to. For those of you who are single, this is not going to be a Christian version of speed dating. Now that I blessed you, can I have your number? I'll bless you again later. As we begin to do this, if you find someone attractive, please go to somebody else for a blessing. It kind of defeats the purpose of the whole thing. So let me explain to you what's going to happen and how this is going to work. Don't look at them, but the people over here in this section, one of them doesn't know it yet, but I'm going to call them up on stage in just a few minutes. And they're going to come up on stage with me, and I am going to demonstrate how you do a blessing to someone. And then there'll be how many people on stage? 2. So the person I've blessed now is a blesser. And so 2 more people are going to come up on stage. I'm going to take one. Person number 2 is going to take one. We're going to bless the 2 of them. How many blessers do we have now? So you have to come and be blessed first before you become a blesser. Does that make sense? And trust me, receiving the blessing is a lot harder than giving it. That's why we're doing it this way. So after those 2 are done, how many blessers will we have? 4, come on. It's not hard. Wow. Some of you were partying a little too hard last night. And then there'll be 4 of us up here, and then 4 more people will come up, and we will bless those 4. How many will we have? Wow, there we go. I'm so much happier. All right, and we're just going to keep doing this. Now, it's going to go slow in the beginning. It's going to accelerate really fast. So this is how logistically I want this to work. So once we've got this stage full, and we're going to start with this section here. Once the stage is full, I want you to start lining up in the front. You following me over here? Okay. You're all terrified, aren't you? You should be. All right, and then, but once people start lining up here, that's your signal, middle section, front, to start coming down here, and you receive a blessing before you can turn around and bless somebody else. And then once you've received your blessing, go ahead and fill up here. Now, this is going to fill up fast. When this fills up, I want you to go along over there across the railing, and that's a signal for you in this section. Blessing time has now arrived. And you can go and have someone give you a blessing, and then you go next to them and go around, and now you can bless other people. Section up there, once you have people lined up in front of your section, you can come out of your section, get blessed, and we're just going to go across. Same thing for people in the upper section, same for the people up there. Now, you just need to understand something. I'm not really big into details. So there might have been a few things about this whole exercise I have not really thought through all that much. So just be nice to the ushers and anybody else who tries to help, because they're flying by the seat of their pants just like I am. But this can be a very meaningful, powerful moment. I do not want you to do this just as a spiritual exercise because everybody else is doing it. Let me give you the 4 basic parts of doing the blessing that I think are meaningful. First, take your time. Do not be in a hurry when we do this. Again, you're supposed to be focusing on the person that's in front of you. I got some feedback from someone after the first service. They said it felt like it was just me and that person and no one else in the world. That's what it can do. So don't be in a hurry. But this is not an opportunity for you to pray about what's happening in Bali or any other place in the world. We're just blessing. It's 15, 20 seconds, really. That's all it is. But don't be in a hurry, though. Second, go ahead and I want you to put your hand on their shoulder. No hugging. All right? Just hand on someone's shoulder, arm length away from you. Let's just keep it that way. That's a good idea. Look them in the eye when you do this. And finally, just as much as you're able to, kind of think of projecting your soul toward their soul as you ask God to do something good for them. Does this make sense? So, remember, you have to be blessed first, and then you get to be a blesser, and that's how this is going to go. And I'm going to demonstrate first what that looks like, and there'll be a couple other options or availabilities for you to see this. So you'll hear it several times, but there's about 16 people on here stage, you're on your own. I'm just telling you now. So, guy in the blue shirt, polo. Are you terrified to come up here? No? Good. Come on up, brother. Now, the reason I picked him is I have no idea who he is. And I would really encourage you to do the same. Just think about what it means to be blessed by someone who doesn't know you. They're part of a spiritual community together with you, but you don't know them. But that doesn't matter. Sorry. Because we both are asking God to do the same thing. And so this is an opportunity as a community, for us to bless and encourage our community together. So I'd encourage you to actually go to someone to be blessed by someone you don't know. And then go find when the blessings come in, then have other people that you don't know. I think that's powerful. So, and this is not an act. I really am going to mean this when I do this, okay? Hi. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord bring something good into your life, and you have no idea that it's coming. And yet it's still something that you need that's good. May the Lord bless you. Okay? Now, OMR, you can stay. You and I are together now. OMR, you can go ahead, and Pastor Mitch is going to walk you through the same thing that we're going to be doing here. I think it's really cool that OMR is going to be doing it while we're doing it here. It'll be fantastic, so go ahead to them. Okay, where's the rest of you? If you want this to happen, section here, start lining up over here. We need to roll. So I need 2 people up here who wants to have this happen. 2? Don't be shy. We got another service coming up. Let's roll. So 2 people, come on up. Now again, you don't have to do this if it makes you feel uncomfortable, but trust me, it can be pretty powerful. So 2, brother over here. Right there. All right. May the Lord bless you. May he bring something good into your life that you do not yet have and that you do not see him coming. May God bless you. All right, just line up here. 4 more. Who's the 4? Come on, over here. Over here. Hi.
Hello, sir.
May the Lord bless you. May he bring something good into your life that you do not know that you need and you do not see is coming. May the Lord bless you. Okay, you 4, line up next to us. 8, let's go. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord bring you something good into your life that you do not yet have and you don't see coming. May God bless you. All right, line up. And if we run out of room on stage for you guys, then go down front. Okay, 16 more. Come on up. Come on, blessers, grab somebody here. All right. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord bring something good into your life that you do not know that you need, and you do not see that it's coming. May the Lord bless you. All right, I think we're running out of room down here, so why don't you guys go and start filling into the front on the stage. Pastor Gary will help direct you. Those of you in this middle section, if you're ready to be blessed, get on your feet. There's going to be people lined up, and we will take 16 more people up here on stage, too. Yeah, 16 different people. Don't do this twice. It's just not fair. Okay, I don't think we have 16 over there, so I'm going to ask this section over here. You can start coming up this direction if you'd like. So come on up, all of you. 1, 2, 3. Hi. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord bring something good into your life that you don't even know that you need and that you do not see coming. May God bless you. You're welcome. All right, you, 16, once you're blessed, go ahead and go across the railing over there and help those people out over there. All right, these are not sermons, they're blessings. Let's go. All right, upper section up there. Come on down if you want. Just trail along the wall and come up on stage, and we will take care of you. See, I told you, I'm not into details. Just make this work. All right, people upper middle section, why don't you start filling in this aisle down here? Go down there, find the end of the blessing line, and grab someone. Well, don't grab them, but come on up. Come on, let's go. Hi there. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord bring something good into your life that you do not see coming and you don't even know that you need. May the Lord bless you with something good. You're welcome. Appreciate you. All right. Yep, go that way. Go wherever Gary tells you now. I have no idea. Find the end of the blesser line, and that's where you need to go. All right. Oh, we got a blessing train going. If anybody can get themselves up here on stage, we're ready.
Okay, you've got 16 folks ready to bless you up on stage. If you're against the wall and you've been blessed and you're ready to bless someone else, would you just raise your hand so that someone can come to you? Because we have many people who want to be blessed. So if you see someone with a raised hand, seek them out, and they're ready to bless you.
Yeah.
If you've been blessed and you want to bless someone else, just raise your hand, and someone will find you.
All right, we still got blessers on stage if you need it. We might be a little hard to get to.
Those of you who have blessed someone, feel free to make your way back to your seats because some are still trying to come forward. We need some blessers up in the back.
Well,
You don't have to come forward to be blessed at this point. Okay, at this point, I want to make sure everyone who wants to be blessed gets a blessing. So, everyone put your hands down. If you haven't been blessed yet and you still want to receive a blessing, now it's time for you to put your hand up. If you want to be blessed, put your hand up. If you see a raised hand, go bless that person. If you see a raised hand, go bless that person. You can bless them on your way back to your seat. Let's make sure everyone with a raised hand receives a blessing. Just leave your hand up until someone comes and blesses you. And we will keep going until every hand is down. There are some raised hands up in the back section to my left, your right. We could use some people going back up there and blessing people. Keep your hand up if you want to receive a blessing. Still some on the stairs in the back here. Can we have a few people go back in this area? We've got a good dozen people or so who want to be blessed over in that section.
so anybody else still need to have someone come and bless them? Raise your hand so we know who needs it. We now have more blessers than people who need blessing, so that can happen. So let me talk to you why I think this is so important. Again, I talked about we grow up in church and we're taught that cursing is bad, but we're never taught what to do that's good. And I just hope you being able to experience this has given you ideas of how you can begin to go beyond who you are into the world of other people and make a difference. And I think learning how to be a blesser is so important as the mental paradigm that we look at the world from, instead of what is the world going to give me. Now, I don't think there's anything bad in wanting to have your needs met. I think every human being wants that. But when that becomes the focus of our attention, and people become objects of getting the things that we want, something's gone wrong. And so I hope this experience has blessed you and that you have begun to learn how to skill. And there's 6 more other blessings that you can learn how to engage in with other people. Parents, you should be doing this with your kids. Parents, you realize your kids are a blessing? I know not every day. But you should bless your kids. You should bless your spouse. Blessing someone has nothing to do with whether they deserve it or not, by the way. It's you asking God to do something on someone else's behalf. One of the things that I do in my house, especially those nights I can't sleep, I wake up, those things happen. I go through my house and bless the rooms in my house. My wife doesn't even know this. She will learn this in the next service. 3 or 4 times a week while she's asleep, I do this. Okay, maybe I won't tell her. But when she's asleep, I put my hand on her head or on her shoulder and just pray some of the blessings out of this Numbers chapter 6. She doesn't need to know. And by the way, you can do this with anybody. You can be in line at Starbucks and pray a blessing on the person. I encourage you not to touch them. But you can bless people because you're asking God to do something. And you're letting him decide what that means for them. And his blessing for them might come that hour, it might come that year, it might come next year. Again, we're letting God to decide how he does this. But when we become in the mindset of a blesser, it takes us into something bigger than ourselves, and that's real life. What you just did this morning, that's real life. I'm going to have Pastor Gary come and close us out.